All right, a lot of people don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about an analog meter versus a smart meter. So the one on your left is my analog meter by Westinghouse, which is still on my house. And you can see it has a series of 5 dials across it, look like little clocks. And your meter reader leans over your fence or goes into your backyard, and he reads those dials once a month. Or if you're on averaging, you can have the utility company average your bills, and about once a year it gets read, or every quarter it might get read, and then they adjust it. But that is a meter that's been working for a long, long time, because the delivery of electricity is a mature process. It's a mature product. They know how to do it. And they've been doing it for a long time and know how to do that. All right, on the right is a picture of Charlie Biggs, the editor of the Tulsa Beacon's new electronic two-way communication smart meter. And he was at home when the utility company came by, which was PSO, and he asked them if it was a smart meter, and the guy said, no, it wasn't, but it really is. And so I asked him if I could take a picture. I didn't just hop in his backyard. I asked if I could take a picture, and he said, sure. And while I was there, it was pulsing. And Joe Esposito, who is here, by the way, he is an expert on all the health effects and what has been happening in the state of Oklahoma. And it was pulsing while I was taking this picture. Anyway, so that's the difference between the two. One has a digital readout, and this one is by Itron. And if you, I don't know, if you click, you just hit the down arrow once, it should enlarge that. Maybe it doesn't.
I don't think that there's anything.
All right. So now the next thing we're talking about is, what is a big hullabaloo out here? Well, as most of you know by now, AEP PSO in 2011 or 12 announced that they were going to do this rollout, or might even been 2013, that they're going to need a rate hike, $45 million rate hike, because they're going to be rolling out smart meters in their 30,000 square mile territory, and the adoption of smart meters, and they're going to have to raise the rates $45 million. PSO is pretty cognizant of the fact that this is a controversial issue, and so their project is called PSO Grid Smart, not Smart Grid. Pretty good, right? Okay, and if you go to their website, which is basically PSO.com, you can go to at PSO. We're looking at new ways for our customers to better manage their energy use to save money on their electric bills. That's called propaganda. Okay, advanced, it will do a lot of different things, but that's one of the things, and it'll be controlling your energy use, but they will be the ones that'll be dictating mostly. Advanced digital meters, that's the smart meter, are being installed in areas across PSO service territory, and that includes Tulsa County, as part of our Grid Smart project. With this high-tech metering infrastructure, the smart meters are part of a broad group of products called the infrastructure. The smart meter is just the part that you see. The smart grid is this huge conversion of the existing generation, distribution, transmission, and distribution of electric and water and gas, by the way. PSO can offer expanded money and energy savings programs to help customers use electricity more efficiently and save money. Okay, and there's the phone number to call. All right, so you can call, but you're not going to get much help. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Well,
I was on this one, and nothing that you read was on that.
it's underneath it. See, because the animations went away. And so the things that I read are underneath those two little boxes. All right, so now you can go back. You can just go back one. All right, so PSO seeks $45 million, right? And they had a public hearing about that at the Corporation Commission. The Corporation Commission is the governing body for, or the rates, governing the rates. If the utility company wants to raise the rates, they have to go to the Corporation Commission. They had a public hearing in one of the courtrooms at the Corporation Commission, and a few of us were in attendance. Well, it was advertised that it was going to take place on June 25th to hear this rate hike. The Attorney General was going to be there to represent the ratepayers, that's us. Well, several days beforehand, there's an announcement that PSO reached an agreement ahead of time with some clients, which would have been Walmart and some other folks, that now it's only going to be $24 million to offset the expense. So the question is, how could they make an agreement before the public hearing with certain customers when the public wasn't part of that decision making? because who's ruling things is the corporations. They had their interests satisfied. Part of those interests representing the consumer group was AARP, and I'm sure they represent all of you in a truthful and honest manner. A few of us attended on June 25th the public hearing. Janine gave great testimony, by the way, and so did Joe Esposito and another lady who happens to be an attorney, and another gentleman, who's the one his wife is so sick? Billy Smith. Just breaks your heart what's happened to that family because of the health effects. I'm going to let Joe be the expert on the health effects. I'm just telling you about what the infrastructure is like. And then I made a comment about their press release. It said they were going to offer the meters. And an offer applies that you can reject that, right? You don't have to accept the offer. Well, offer is also contract language. And you offer it and people accept it in exchange for consideration. The consideration is a transfer of funds between two parties, right? Consideration would be when you pay your bill, that's a consideration. Or when you sign a contract, one party offers it, the other one accepts, and then it's solidified when there's a transfer of payment. So an offer implies that you can not take the offer. Well, in the state of Oklahoma, when people have refused the offer of the smart meter, they've been handcuffed. A gentleman in Guthrie was handcuffed in his front yard. They have been arrested. That was in Naperville, Illinois. They arrested housewives in the front of their house and took them to jail. And we've had other people, a friend of mine up in Idaho was facing the same thing, and they showed up with the sheriff at that house, and the sheriff, of course, is wearing a gun, which is very intimidating if you live by yourself.
66 days, no power.
Joe Esposito went 66 days with no power, so they didn't show up with any kind of law enforcement, but they just shut off his power when he swapped things out. So there's your offer. At the federal level, the legislation that was written, which I will get into, says that these things are not mandatory. But when you talk to the utility companies, they're sure making it like it's mandatory, that you have no other options. But we'll get into that. The bottom part, that's the June 18th press release that somehow says that they reached an agreement before the public hearing. And that was my objection when we went in there. Okay, next slide. This is part of this massive conversion of the existing utility grid. And utilities could be gas, water, and electric. And ONG, or Oklahoma Gas and Electric, took stimulus money, $130 million in stimulus money, because the stimulus bill was about a lot of things, including Common Core and this kind of thing, and healthcare reform, because we all have one thing in common, it's the internet and the fiber optic cables and that kind of thing. And they took $130 million and invested $293 million of their own money to put across their meters, because OG&E delivers a lot of electricity in the state of Oklahoma, in addition to those co-ops, et cetera. So this is from a couple years ago, and by then they had already installed 42,000 meters. And I think you've got a gas meter from, is it ONG? ONG, it's a smart meter as well. So this is where this is all going. The justification, if you want to have a good time, I suggest that you go to smartgrid.gov. Go to smartgrid.gov and sit down and watch all the little videos that are there about why we're moving to the smart grid. And the first video is a description of it, and it's only about a minute and a half long. That's smartgrid.gov. And if you watch it, you're going to hear this. You see a graph of the United States, which is kind of misleading because the smart grid is global. San Diego Gas and Electric has an agreement with Belgorod, Russia, for management of their smart grid. So this is not local. This is a global issue here. So if you go there, and it'll tell you that it's a little graphic and it's kind of cartoonish, but it explains why we're doing this is because the existing electric grid was developed about 100 years ago when electricity was first becoming available for people's homes, the delivery of electricity. All right. So it's been around a while. So it was a 20th century technology, and now we're in the 21st century. Earlier on, all people needed in their house was a few light bulbs and the radio. That's what they said, okay? And since then, we've added all these other products that are energy dependent. And so we need to upgrade the whole system to the new modern, the 21st century standards and needs to accommodate that. And it goes into the other explanations of saying because people have added all of these electric products in there that they didn't used to have, the solution is, drum roll, anybody like the sense of irony? To add more products that are energy dependent. And so I was laughing in the kitchen. I said, this is great. Anybody else see the logic and the illogic in this? Because there's too many things plugged in and there's too many demands on the electric grid and it could crash because it's 20th century and now we're in the 21st century, they suggest adding more technology to the grid. So there's the solution and that's what we're facing. All right, and it's internet-based and we'll get to the next thing. Can you advance this slide? There we go. All right, smartgrid.gov, that's the website that you can go to. Somebody's electronic devices telling them about something. This is the Department of Energy envisions the smart grid. Always worry when the government envisions something. An automated, widely distributed energy delivery network. It is a network connected, characterized by two-way flow of electricity and information. It's two-way information. They always said it was going to be, it always is about two-way information to the user and back again. Capable of monitoring everything from power plants to customer preferences to individual appliances. Now somebody was joking the other day when they were talking about there's no such thing as the Internet of Things and these appliances, that's all futuristic. Well, no, it isn't. It's here now. And there is this Internet of Things. And if you don't believe me, just do a Google search or a start page, use start page. Internet of Things, and it's tying into these where your things communicate with each other and send information and data in this more connected world, which means you more wireless routers, more Wi-Fi, more electronics in your house, and more signals going out. But no worries, it's the 21st century smart grid. It incorporates into the grid the benefits of distributed computing and communications to deliver real-time information. Real-time information means that you're not going to be paying for your electric usage once a month. They start with a meter read, and at the end of the month do another meter read, and you get charged for the sum total, or averaged of the year. It's real-time, and in order to do real-time calculations, they have to have the smart meter because we are moving toward time of day rate variations. Not just seasonal. You know, right now you may have seasonal variations in kilowatt hours. They go up in the summer because they have to produce more kilowatts for the delivery of electricity because people have their air conditioners on. It goes down. You have low peak times and high peak times, and it kind of seasonal. Now it's going to be peak demand and low peak during the day, during a 24-hour clock, and you may or may not get enough notice ahead of time that the peak is going to be at 11 o'clock the next day, so you might want to adjust your electric usage down during that peak, or like the toll road, if you want to get in the express lane, you could pay more. That's what it is. So you're going to have to be monitoring it or buy these electronic devices that'll monitor it for you and automatically reduce your energy usage during peak demand times and increase your energy usage during low peak demand, right? When you do that, what's going to happen? Come on. Are you just going to be shifting the peak to another time? Okay, so now the peak won't be 12 noon, maybe the peak will be at 7 p.m. If peak demand is what they're trying to avoid, this is not going to necessarily, because people are going to switch. Plus, if your air conditioner is on, it's because you need it on, because it's hot, it's 100 degrees at 3 o'clock, not 100 degrees maybe at 3 a.m. All right, so what they're trying to do. Now, this is smart appliances. With the legislation that was written over a series of several years, this started in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to now. The legislation for this conversion has been coming for quite a while. In those initial pieces of legislation at the federal level was the statement that mass-produced appliances were going to have to change their standards of operation and how they actually function so that they were interoperable with the internet. So that's why you're getting appliances now that have Wi-Fi or wireless routers or data that's in them that's can be read by the utility company, so they know that it is a Whirlpool or it's a GE or it's a Samsung or it's an LG specifically. And when it came on and when it goes, you know, when it's on, well, refrigerator's on all the time, but the brand, same thing with your coffee makers and all these other kinds of things. You looked at a high-tech conference description of the future of a refrigerator. You probably have seen this, where it'll be connected to your iPhone. You're at the grocery store, you forgot what you've got in the refrigerator, you can just tap into your refrigerator, and your refrigerator can tell you what the contents are of your refrigerator, so you don't buy more than what you need, or you know what you're missing.
How we gonna live without that?
We can live without a lot of this. Okay, but man, there's big bucks in this. Okay, smart appliances. Smart appliances are new appliances that are compatible and are interoperable with the smart grid. And those are the appliances that are mass produced, and they all agreed to it. There's a standards making board that governs those manufacture of these appliances. And this says, next one. Sorry, there you go. All right, there's a smart refrigerator. Didn't sell very well, but they're still trying. LG is still trying. Okay. Smart appliances can access the smart grid power source to optimize energy use at opportune times of the day. They're not going to need you because your appliances are going to be fluctuating up and down. It says, get this, for example, power will only be supplied to the coffee maker in the morning and the washing machine at night. Hey, sounds great. Smart grid power technology has not yet been implemented nationwide, but is currently being tested in specific markets. I think we're a market. All right, next slide. There you go. There's the Internet of Things. And for a gentleman who didn't believe me, you could look it up and see it on Wikipedia, so it must be true, right? But there's all kinds of things. You can get on a newsletter for fierce government and fierce IT and all these kind of things, and they'll tell you about conferences on Internet of Things, and it's where your device is talking to your device, and your smartphone is involved with it, and you can have little apps on your phone that control the lights in your house, the locks on your door, the thermostat, and everything else, and you can do this all remotely. Pretty soon, you're not going to need a house, right? You're just going to need, I don't even know what you need, but Samsung, Intel, and Dell launched Internet of Things Consortium, and there's already 51 members of the Internet of Things Consortium. And this is where your things communicate with other things in there, not just your computer, but other things in your house are communicating with each other, not in words, but in digital information. But that's where we're going with this. Okay, so next slide. All right, what's under the little boxes is 2005 Energy Policy Act. I listed all the pieces of legislation that I found that have to do with the smart grid and these implementation. 2005 was the Energy Policy Act. 2007 was the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. How it's being marketed is that we're going to be energy independent, generate our own energy. They've been saying that my whole life. I'm 58 years old and it still hasn't happened. And we still have OPEC. Anyway, we still have dependence on foreign oil. 2008 was TARP, which was the bailout. Our governor voted for it. All of our elected officials voted for TARP except Frank Lucas, which is kind of surprising, and Jim Inhofe, which was good. But everybody else voted for it. In the TARP bill was the language for smart meters. 2009 was the stimulus bill. It was called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. It was also the stimulus bill. That's the one that funded all this technology that it created grant monies for smart grid technology, fiber optic cables to remote locations within the states, which is the backbone for all of this, electronic health record adoption, Common Core, and a whole bunch of other things. So that was the stimulus bill. What it was is to spread this money everywhere to make a market for electronic records or data collection systems. 2010, in the state, we passed House Bill 3028. The author of that bill was Chris Binge, and it was called the Oklahoma Energy Security Act. And in there was the codifying demand-side management technologies that shift loads, which means was giving the legislative opened up the door legislatively to PSO being able to do the smart meters. In 2011 was House Bill 1079, which was called the people were starting to be very concerned about the data collection and the privacy issues, so a bill was introduced and passed called Electric Usage Data Protection Act, which did everything except that. It made the utility companies the owner of the consumer's information, and they had the ability to share it with the utilities. So if you look there, now the boxes make sense. That's the NAESB, is the North American Energy Standards Board, and request number 22 says establishes voluntary model business practices for third-party access to smart meter-based information. Yes, they do plan to share your information with third parties, and they don't identify who the third parties are. House Bill 1079, Section 4, Kay Beach of Axiom for Liberty hounded this bill in 2011 and fought it unsuccessfully, like a lot of our bills are. Anyway, but this one gave the utility companies ownership of the consumer's data. While it says it's trying to protect it, it's protecting it for them. And in there it says that they can share it for business purposes, which is the whole purpose of the smart grid. Electric utilities may utilize customer identifiable usage data for the internal regulated business purposes, which they regulate everything so they can share it with whomever they like. For the development, enhancement, marketing, because now they're going to market certain products to you, also monitor your usage on that. And if you think this isn't eventually going to be tied to your health record and health data and data collection having to do with your lifestyle, you're naive. Yes, it is. Because who's going to waste the data? The data can be sold for profit. Who's going to be looking for this kind of data would be healthcare providers. Okay. It was, Chris Bench was House Bill 3028, the Oklahoma Energy Security Act.
Amanda,
Yes.
remember to tell them that some of these smart appliances have cameras in them.
This computer has a camera in it. Right there, see the Post-it note? You're volunteering for a lot of this stuff, okay? Just be aware, a camera doesn't always look like a camera. Okay, use of customer identifiable usage data under the provisions of subsection B, which is right above it. This section shall not require customer consent. They do not need your consent because you are their customer. All right, next slide, please. Okay. All right, now we're getting to the part where we're going to have an open discussion, and I hope Janine will come up and help here. All right, so now you've had a lot of opportunity. Most people know about, and have heard Joe Esposito talking about the health concerns and the privacy concerns. The smart meter actually is two-way communication. It is built that way. What I would like to see in these public hearings is actually to have them present a smart meter, take it all apart, and show the modems that are inside, because there's two. And it sends and receives, and it's collecting the data. And imagine your house is this little network here. So you've got a utility panel outside, and there's your meter, right? And you've got the breaker box is on the inside, and inside your house, through all the walls, are the wires that are going to the outlets, and you have things plugged into those outlets, or you have a wireless router, and the router's plugged into the outlets. Each of those appliances and objects plugged in has an identifying tone that is unique to that appliance, and that's part of this regular standards. So they can identify the tone, is by signals, the tone of that appliance and tell the make and the model, and of course when it's on and when it's off, which tells people what? When you're home, what you're using, when you're using it, how much you're using. When you leave your home, which room of your home you're in, what you're looking at on the internet. Okay? So it's communicating information about you that was not normally available. Another ridiculous argument I saw on a pro-smart grid website, it was a legal website, saying that this protects the smart grid and smart meters protect your privacy because you don't have a meter reader come into your house. It's like, do you actually think people are going to believe that? And it protects your privacy, but they're going to say things like that. I'd rather have the meter reader peeking over the fence or even in my backyard or using the little mirror or whatever to looking at the dial because I know he's not in my house, examining everything that I'm doing while I'm in the house, my energy usage right down to the appliance. Okay, so I think it's not any of their business, but it is their business. And this business of energy and data collection is part of this knowledge-based economy, and it is all about the data. It is not making it a 21st century grid because of security concerns that they couldn't. They're also justifying this is that if people adjust their energy usage, we won't have to spend billions of dollars building more infrastructure. So that's another marketing. OG&E said that. If because people will begin to monitor and reduce their energy usage on their own, they'll see this reduction in their rates, which is good. Does every business want to reduce rates and not make a profit? This is not even logical, is it? Of course they're going to be making money someplace. Anyway, so they're saying that we're not going to have to build more infrastructure. Well, there's plenty of places to build more infrastructure, but now we can't build more infrastructure, so you're going to have to reduce your energy usage. Is this making sense? If they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, they're saying for one reason we have this faulty delivery system and it needs to be upgraded and brought into the 21st century with new technology. Kind of like when we went from VHS tapes, now you have an iPhone or an iPad or whatever it is that's got thousands, maybe even a million's worth of songs on it. Who's going to listen to that? But instead of a VHS tape, or movies are on there or something. Well, what I think, and I wish I could remember where I read it, is that because we moved into the 21st century, and there is this new technology, their existing technology, if they adopt the new one, they have a lot of capital invested in that infrastructure, and then now it becomes obsolete. Right? So there's depreciation. So part of this is because we're going from VHS tapes to iPhones, or whatever, on that, this new technology, and they don't want to lose the money that they've got invested in this legacy architecture. So a lot of this is financial. Yes, yes, sir.
When they talk about upgrading our grid to the 20th century.
21st century.
21st century, excuse me. Are they doing anything to harden our grid against solar flares and EMP and also rifle attacks on those big, huge transformers that take 2 years to get?
That would make sense.
I think that there are some real serious discussions about that because as more and more things get moved on to this kind of grid, the grid itself is more vulnerable. It's not more resilient, although they're saying it's more resilient. Well, come on. No, it isn't. A little power out interruption here. A distributed model is much better with lower tech generation of power is less likely to be susceptible to cyber attacks. Now they're wondering about cyber attacks. They're worried about the smart grid being hacked.
They were able to take out Silicon Valley with 8 guys with rifles.
Yeah.
Okay, attacking those big, huge transformers, the ones that
And you can take out more people, but they're saying it's more resilient because they're going to have faster response time and know quicker where the outage is, and then they can send an alternative energy supply to continue to stop the interruption in delivery, okay? There is a paper, a series of papers, like 10 or 11 parts that I suggest that you read, and it's by a great researcher named Vicki Davis. And Vicki Davis wrote, her website is channelingreality.com. It has nothing to do with mediums, but it's channelingreality.com. And she has written a series, it's an 11-part series that just takes apart the whole smart meter, smart grid. And what she's looking at is the separation of your rate from actual cost of the generation and delivery of the electricity or the power, okay? And what she's comparing it to is the creation of a middleman. So if we separate the rates actually from the real cost of generation on an existing grid, by the way, is that then it's kind of like Enron was. I spent many hours today reviewing Enron for some reason, because the Enron model was what? They were controlling both the supply side and the demand side, right? The purchasing and the selling. They were the middleman. What I think, Oklahoma is part of the Southwest Power Pool, which is a collection of states, and our energy, AEP PSO, is part of the Southwest Power Pool. You can look it up. Well, the Southwest Power Pool, which all the members have agreed to be part of, will be backing each other up for the delivery and supply of electricity or power from a variety of sources. Some of it could be wind generation, some of it could be water, it's various, some of it could be net metering where people are generating their own, et cetera, but it's to bring all those various methods of generating power together in this pool. Well, the pool has an integrated marketplace. Now that reminded me when I was reading through it, I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't understand it completely, but when I was reading through it, it reminded me of the Obama marketplace, which is a middleman between the providers and the patients. And so now you have buyers and sellers going to a middleman, and the middleman can control both, really both. To me, an integrated marketplace is following that same kind of model. So I go back to Vicki Davis' research on it. She has done an examination of who is regulating and has oversight over the regulation of the delivery of electricity. It's themselves. They regulate themselves. They make their own rates themselves. And that model is reminiscent of what Enron was doing. All right, so now we get to the part here that I would like to have a discussion about. AEP PSO was proposing a $45 million rate hike to offset the expense. They were going to raise the rates and offset the expense of rolling out 522,000 smart meters over the next year and a half. All right? The discussion, then they had the agreement with certain customers, which I know Walmart was one of them, and the AARP was another one, who was only talking about the rate concerns. When we left that meeting, Janelle said, there's the AARP person, go talk to them. So I did. And I said, what was your position? What were you advocating for with the utility company? And it was only about the rate, controlling the rate so the people on fixed incomes wouldn't have an increase in their utility bills. And I said, well, a lot of these people, the elderly, are not going to be aware of how their health is being negatively affected. AARP did not want to go anywhere near the health issue, even though that they knew that their elderly clientele, or the people that are members of AARP, which I can't believe anybody would actually be a member of AARP, but if they were on there, that they're not looking actually for them, or they're more political. An elderly person is less likely of a certain age to get on the internet and do research on what a smart meter is and what the potential health effects are. The elderly are already going to they will feel different, possibly, because of the meter being on their house, and what they're going to do then is just think it's old age, or they'll go to the doctor and they'll end up on another prescription because they've got heart palpitations, so they can't sleep at night. One lady, I was watching a video on it, was an elderly lady who was in an apartment, and all the banks of smart meters were on the outside wall. It was a condo. Were right outside her bedroom, and she had nosebleeds every night. She could no longer sleep in her own room. So there are negative health effects from the pulsing that a smart meter emits. It's radio frequency. It emits a signal. Now they'll say it's only a couple of times a day. Well, he can tell you it's 14,000 times a day, and when they're saying it's only for a couple of minutes, they're not telling you, or a couple of seconds, they're not telling you that those couple of seconds are divided up into pulses 14,000 times a day that collectively, in the aggregate, equal maybe 15 seconds or 10 seconds. But it's pulsing a lot, and every time it's doing, it's gathering information from the appliances that are telling on you in your house. So they're not going to know what it is. So I asked her, would you please look into the health issues here for your vulnerable population that you are advocating for? Well, she agreed. I have no idea if they'll do anything about it. All right. All right, so now we're back down to opt-out or non-consent. You have the option, a lot of states are giving their customers of the utility companies the options to opt out. Maine, Michigan, and California have already agreed, and because of the pushback and the evidence of the negative health effects, have given their customers the option to opt out. Some of it comes with an associated fee, a one-time switch over to put an analog meter back on, plus a monthly fee. There's a move, maybe you can give me better information, to say that there really shouldn't be a fee associated with that. When I was showing my son this PowerPoint presentation earlier tonight, and he goes, if California could do this, can't Oklahoma? And he said, well, anyway, there's some things California does right, and on the health issues, those people fight, and they won. And so they can't, Pacific Gas and Electric did have to give them an opt-out. So there's opt-out. Non-consent is another kind of option, and I'm kind of leaning toward non-consent. Back on the opt-out, Mike Reynolds, I don't know if he's here tonight, contacted Senator Mike Mazie and wanted to know if he wants an opt-out. What can the legislature do to give people the option to opt out of having a smart meter? Mazie responded and said that he's going to consider running legislation. Representative Seneca Scott moved into a house in Tulsa, and it has smart meter on it, and he began feeling negative health effects. So I think he's probably going to be very interested in doing something himself. Senator Nathan Dahm has agreed to see if he can work with Mazie on an opt-out. So that's one option. Well, the legislative session doesn't go until next year, and when they pass it, won't go into effect if they're successful till July or November of next year. And in the meantime, PSO is rolling out 522,000 smart meters, so a whole lot of us will have one. All right, so the other option is non-consent, is that I think non-consent is more the way to go, but I don't know, in that I think we're talking about contract law and agreements. So I'm going to tell you my interesting conversation with PSO today. All right. We all have an account with PSO, right? An account implies that you sign something to get the service, right? I think we're talking contract law, and that's why if they opt out, you are really consenting to what they're delivering, but you're actually asking for an opt-out. Non-consent, I think, is the more legal way to go, because I think we're actually talking about contracts. And we probably need a lawyer to explain this, but I have a smidgen of understanding, is that when you sign on the dotted line, you are agreeing to the conditions of a contract in consideration for something, the transfer of funds, where each party agrees to do something. The utility company agrees to deliver the power, and you agree to pay them. Well, a little bit looking around, who has the contract? The municipalities have a contract with the utility company to deliver electricity or make electricity available for this municipality. We then contact PSO and say, I'd like to have electricity delivered, an account set up with me. So I called PSO's toll-free number and identified myself and said, here's my account number, and I would like to see a copy of the agreement or contract between PSO, AEP PSO, and me. And the lady said, what? And I said, may I see a copy of the agreement? I didn't know whether to call it an agreement or a contract between us and PSO. And I said, I know I've probably thrown you, maybe you have a legal department. She says, there is no legal department. I said, she had to go away and talk to a supervisor, and they played nice jazzy music, and she came back and said, you would have to have your lawyer contact PSO to see agreement with PSO, if there is one. I said, okay, just a second. So let me understand this correctly. And I said, there's no contract. I said, there must be something that I agreed to. And she goes, well, you signed up, you got the account at this address in April 1994. I said, did we sign for something? She goes, I don't know. And I don't know how we originally, whether it was a phone call, we bought the house in '94, in April of '94, and I know that there's a lot of closing documents, but we had power at another house, and we transferred power. So we've actually been a customer longer. But what makes me a customer? What did I sign? And she said, you do not have a contract per se, you have a request for service since April 1994. Did I put it in writing and did I sign for it? She didn't know. The public utility, the PUC determines the rates. Is this about rates? I said, no, this is about rates. This is not about rates. Actually, it might be. But the rate is the contract the utility company has with the utility, with the municipality. The rate is the contract, but it's not with me. Okay. You have an account for service, and you have had since April of '94. It is under your Social Security number. And I said, what is the Social Security number used for? And she goes, it's just part of your account. And I come back to the thing, how do I have an account? And she said, the Social Security number is used for ID purposes. And I said, does the utility have a contract with the municipality? She had to put me on hold again. Comes back and she said, now she's irritated, and she says, you're going to have your lawyer issue a subpoena, write a subpoena to request any more information about your account. So you reach AEP, Attention Subpoena Response, 1 AEP Way, Hurricane, West Virginia, 25526. All right, the reason I'm asking for the contract, I'd like to know what I agreed to. And I think that's very interesting that you have to get a subpoena. Now, I'm probably doing this wrong, but that's all what I knew to do. And there's probably somebody that's already done this in a much better way, but I'm not an attorney. But I don't think I should have to get an attorney to subpoena any agreement that I have with AEP PSO. Now, the reason I'm going there is because they're not giving people an option. But I'd like to see what the conditions are of the agreement between me and PSO. And I think that's a fair request. And I think that's something that we each could ask. And I don't know who to ask, whether it's the Corporation Commission, if we have a representative there, or something. But there has to be in a contract.
Hey, while you're on that subject, how did those people get handcuffed when they didn't want to use the smart meter? Did they say they were breaking the contract? Or what was the law that was broken? Or was there one?
It was to keep the man from going back into his house or using his cell phone. And the installer is not the bad guy. The installer has got the orders to go do this. And this gentleman in Guthrie had objected several times. It wasn't that they came out and handcuffed him first. It was after several rejections by the homeowner. And finally, in Guthrie, they just came back and they brought the, I think it was a sheriff. And he wanted to go back into his house because he was outside objecting to it and wanted to go back into his house. He says, no, sir. And he handcuffed him right there in his front yard. And he was yelling, I object, I don't want that. And the installer installed the meter. So the sheriff, or whoever he was, law enforcement officer, was there to protect the installer from the homeowner. They weren't giving him an option. Now they say it's an offer, but here's your offer. It's kind of like the mob. Take it or else. Okay.
They didn't cite a law that was broke. They didn't cite a law.
I think people don't know to ask for the law. I think you need to ask for the law and what the agreement is. And I don't think we have an agreement that says you have to accept it. Anyway, so that's why I'm leaning toward the non-consent and removal, notice in demand, and affidavit of negative averment, which is legal talk. So do you know any more about this?
I had that. That was initiated by an attorney, a real estate attorney out of New York, and I'm trying to find a local attorney, which would have to be a Fourth Amendment attorney or another real estate attorney or both, and have him review it so we can send it out in our state.
Rhonda, if you can minimize the PowerPoint, and on your desktop there, you should see those two documents out there? Just open up the notice in demand. Okay, that's what this looks like. And this came from, Janine sent me the link, and this is from Take Back Your Power. And I have the link to it if you're interested. You can get it off my computer here if you didn't take it down when it was up there on the screen. And get to this, and if you have an attorney, you might have them look at this and see what your options are. It does need to be adapted for Oklahoma.
And
Yeah.
it has to be filled out in a particular way, is what he told me, so.
Yeah. This is Janine Wooster.
So I have filled out the form for our state. And what I'm going to do is, once I find an attorney that's interested in this, I'll have him approve it. And then I'll have everything filled in for everybody, so that all you have to do at the end is put in your name, your address, and have it notarized. Yes.
So is this, are you gonna start initiate like a class action lawsuit then, basically?
Well, it's not a class action lawsuit, but once these start going in, if they get inundated with these, they're going to have to do something. There are class action lawsuits actually against them now.
Right. But if we're big, that if you're a larger organization, then that would have more weight than
Right.
individuals.
And I want to tell you, you would be surprised how much impact we're already having with just a few people. So if we can get people to respond, Rhonda and I went to the Corporation Commission this week, and we also went to the Attorney General's office and spoke with them. When we initially got there, they didn't want to take any of our documents, and they pretty much tried to dismiss us. And but the more we talked to them, the more they understood that we knew more than they thought we knew. We knew more than they knew, than a lot of them knew. And they agreed to take the documentation. When we got over to the Corporation Commission, which we had not, I will tell you, we have not been able to talk to a single Corporation commissioner. I was told by Dana Murphy's office, by her assistant, that I could not come see her, and that I could go online and put a public opinion online at the Corporation Commission, or I could call the Attorney General's office, and because they should be looking out for the welfare of the people, even though the Attorney General office will not have a vote in this, only the commissioners will. So I told them, I said, I've never gone into a legislator's office or a senator's office, or I've gone to DC and I've gone to the governor's office. I've never told him, no one's ever told me I didn't have a right to speak with somebody in that office. So Dana Murphy and Patrice Douglas and Bob Anthony are all elected officials, and we should have access to our elected officials. So that's another issue that we brought up with the Attorney General, and he agreed, and it wasn't the Attorney General, it's one of his assistants, but they agreed that we should be able to access them. We went back to the Corporation Commission, or back to the Corporation Commission, and we sat down with two gentlemen that were not in the corporation, the commissioner's offices, and we started presenting things to them and showing them our documentation. They said, oh no, you have to go downstairs, we can't read any of that. You have to file it with the clerk. Before we left, they took that documentation. They not only took it, they promised they would read it, and they scanned it in, and then we went down and put another copy, filed it with the clerk. But we have two elected officials that have been affected by the radiation coming off of these meters. Seneca Scott said he would have attended those two meetings with us if he hadn't been on vacation. When they heard that there were two legislators that had been affected, then their whole attitude changed. The other thing is, this last session, there was a Neptune meter, which is a water meter. There was a bill in the House for that, and Seneca Scott was able to talk to the legislators and explain to them what it does, and they defeated that bill. So we're making some headway. What PSO is counting on is that the general public does not know about the health issues or the privacy issues. If we're not educated, we can't complain about it, we can't do anything about it. But once you get educated about it, then they're starting to listen, because they're getting a lot of calls, and they're getting a lot of angry people.
Are any of the radio stations helping, like KFAQ?
We're
to
hoping that
publicize this?
KFAQ will help. We have plans for that.
I want to make certain I understand what you're saying. You've got this document right here that you filled out.
Yes,
that
sir.
you're going to.
Right,
Okay, and it's effectively a letter that we sent to PSO.
no,
That says that we, okay,
Well,
that we do not give the consent, we do not give our
Right,
consent,
right.
okay, to put this in our house.
correct.
Okay. Is it possible to add some words to it as well? If there's any adverse health effects that
It mentions that, it
that
mentions,
they will be liable?
yes,
If you
it
scroll
mentions
down
that.
You can scroll down it, you can see it's not just
It's
this one.
probably more in the affidavit.
The above non-consent,
That's a question.
anyway,
They call it, they label it trespassing technology because that's what it is. And the thing is, the utility company is changing their relationship with us. The Corporation Commission is giving them permission to do that in a rate hike. They're going in for a rate hike, but they're really changing their whole relationship with us because they used to supply us with a kilowatt hour that we would pay for. They were our utility provider, our electricity provider. Now what they are going to be, they're not only going to be our provider, but they're going to be our monitor, real-time monitoring of our house. It goes on a computer. All those frequencies are identifiable. They're all on a computer at PSO. And they're going to be a miner of our data. And what they don't want us to know is they are sharing that information not only with the federal government, but whomever they choose to sell it to for profit. So there's a profit line in there for them.
that's the other reason to get a copy of your agreement with them, because what she said, I think, is brilliant. It changed the relationship. But if you have an agreement with them that says, this is our relationship, and then one party changes it, there should be an addendum or an agreement, right? You should agree to that.
You know, I think most of us just call it.
Huh?
It's a property rights issue now, and that's why you have to go back to the municipality. Your agreement initially was not with yourselves and PSO, it was through the municipality. So you see what I mean? That's why you do need a real estate.
Well, it is on the water for sure, because it's the city.
Has the city of Tulsa entered into an agreement to allow these smart meters to be installed?
The city of Tulsa will be installing them themselves because they are part of our water department. So,
I'm talking about AEP, PSO.
no,
So there is no agreement between the
No.
electric company and the city?
no. And what the electric company is counting on is, even though they're getting permission for a rate hike at the Corporation Commission, in each state, they've stated, oh, the Corporation Commission gave us permission to do this by approving a rate hike. So it's a tangled web. Go ahead.
Is there any hope, or is there anything that the Todd Hyatt, is that his name? He's running for corporation.
He won't have a vote on this.
He has no ability to.
He has no vote, and he's watched the film Take Back Your Power, but he really hasn't commented on it very much. So I don't know how much help he's going to be.
Why couldn't the county commissioners of the city of Tulsa, powers that be, vote against the smart meters, at least for the city of Tulsa? Why wouldn't we bring pressure on those people?
Well, we are on the water meter because they actually have control over the water meters.
Right.
So we can do that, but you might be bringing up a good point about the county commissioners.
If it stops at the municipality, there's no way they can install it.
Right.
For the public.
Right.
Right, I'm from Illinois, right outside of Naperville, and I was working with that group. You've probably seen my video on the Blaze, and we just moved here, partially to get away from a lot of stuff in Illinois. But the issue there is the municipality has an agreement that they, in essence, are allowed on your property. And that's why the two women, one in front of her children, were handcuffed and arrested. One was handcuffed, I believe, to a tree in front of her little preschool children. Because the municipalities and all the rigmarole, part of what they do is they have some rights to your property, you know, to inspect the utility meter. We'll say if there's a fire, the fire department can go onto your property. So there's little municipality codes, and that's where the big hoopla ended up in Naperville was on the municipality code of that person being able to come on the property, because what people in Naperville did is they put a bar of steel, like they bent a metal steel bar around their old meter and put padlocks on there. So that, because what they do is they just come and yank it off your house. I think it turns and they yank. And a lot of people's houses were damaged because these meter guys don't even care. They yank that old thing out and all the insulation behind it and the sliding comes tearing off, and then they slap this new thing up. And it was, let me tell you, Naperville, I was there, it was unbelievable the things that are happening over the smart meter.
But if it can be stopped at the larger population centers, like Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Muskogee, Enid, Lawton, it's done. That the city fathers need to be pressured to reach out.
Well, I would be happy to put pressure on them. I think
We need to create a group, like.
We do.
I think that's it, like if we advertise, if we band together, create like our own app or something, an energy pack.
We-
I think we need to create something that's more formal.
we need to be
We need
organized.
attorney, we need like,
We
we need
do.
people that,
We
feet
do.
on the ground.
And we need funds. There is an attorney in Edmond that's been representing 3 people who are before the Corporation Commission, and one's before OG&E, one case is ONG, and one is PSO, the current case. And this attorney's overwhelmed, and he's not being paid. So he's taken on these cases because he thinks they're worthy cases to take on. But we do need funds to hire an attorney. You know, if we pool our funds together, we can probably do that. But one of the notices, on that notice, it goes to the governor, it goes to the corporation commissioners, it goes to the CEOs of all the utility companies, it's going to go to the head of the water utility board at the city of Tulsa, it'll go to the mayor, and it'll go to the city councilors. So all those people are going to be included in that notice. So how effective it'll be, we don't know. But I tell you what, I don't think we can sit back and say, well, this isn't going to do anything, or this isn't going to be effective. We've got to go ahead and do it. Because even if it doesn't stand up in a court of law, it's going to put them on notice. And they're going to know more people are aware of this situation, and it's going to make them more difficult to accomplish it.
So we're going to potentially sign these and then give them to you?
No, I'm trying to get an attorney to verify that the way I've done it. Now, the one in New York has volunteered to do that, but I want somebody local. He's in New York. I would like a local attorney to look at it and say yay or nay. And once I have all the people, because you have to fill it out a certain way when you fill it out. And I wouldn't have filled it out the right way unless I had called that attorney and started. It's legalese, and it doesn't make
Anybody know
sense
an
to
attorney?
us.
But once we have it,
Scott
what do we do
McKee's
with
an
it?
attorney?
Then what we do is we send it certified mail. They will be notarized, and we send them certified mail, and you send it to each one of the people on there. But you send that one letter, you just copy it over, you make copies of the notarized letter, and then you mail it to each person on that list individually, as individually to the governor. So all these people are going to get this letter.
It'd be
So the more
nice-
letters we get out, the more
It would be
effective it's
nice
going to
if you
be.
could get a couple of your neighbors to go in with you, so it's a group of you within a neighborhood.
And just in the meantime, so if PSO was going ahead with the meter installation, for example, and so we say, no, we want to do this thing, they're either going to install it or they'll cut our power or something, right?
Right,
They're
they
just
will.
So in the meantime, I mean, we'll do this, but this doesn't stop them until.
No, it doesn't.
When are they scheduled to start installing these?
Well, I suspect once they give the approval, there's 180 days, the AG's office said that there's a time, I guess, for some kind of rebuttal.
Once it's been determined that they can, once the court makes the decision, then the Corporation Commission has 180 days to vote on it. If they don't vote on it, then PSO can automatically begin the rate hike, but it's with the stipulation that if the Corporation Commission says that it's a no-no, then they have to be able to rebate the money back to the customer.
Can we threaten the corporation commissioner, by telling them we're not gonna vote for them and make it a big deal?
Absolutely,
Seriously.
absolutely.
That's one thing
If you
we
can
do.
even get them on the phone, which
Yeah,
you
just
won't
tell
be
them,
able
you know,
to.
And say, how dare you not see us,
Well,
and you are not gonna be reelected.
That was
Right.
just brought up by one of the other ladies that just left, and she said what we need to do is start writing editorials or start writing
Yes.
letters to the newspaper that they're not gonna see us, okay?
Yeah.
Patrice Douglas, we need to request that she recuse herself from being able to vote. Because if you go and you look at her campaign contributions, it's OG&E, it's PSO, it's
And we should
ONG.
publish it.
I know.
Put
Well,
her
I
picture
know.
on the paper and show all of it.
We agree.
This is, but.
That's what we need to
We
do.
need more people involved to help us, because, but, so we need to request that she recuse herself.
Yeah.
Because she's a biased vote in that, and then now whether or not she would do it or not, we'll have to wait and see.
And then I don't know, if we only have 2 commissioners
Patrice Douglas,
voting
she's running
out of the
for
3,
Right.
if they can do that,
House.
I don't know.
There's so much
But there
stuff,
is.
that, like these little loopholes that we don't know
The
about.
White House wants to do away with all the power plants and coal producing plants. How are we gonna have enough electricity to regulate?
I understand, and that's a big point, because we are not protecting the power pool. This is a 5-state power pool that we're involved in, and we're not protecting it right now.
Well, I was trying to be funny, but
I
I'm really
know.
serious.
I know.
If that idiot keeps doing what he's doing, how are we gonna regulate it?
Should make like an energy awareness
Just
thing.
another quick little comment from Illinois. So we have what they call a citizens utility board there, and they approved the rate hike for the smart meters. And they got started on it, and then they stopped. And sure enough, about a month ago, they said, oh, that rate hike that was paying for the smart meters, not even close to enough money.
Right.
So now they've done a second rate hike. So when they give you this number, it's a fake number.
No, and they'll
is.
tell you they're
And they'll
coming
just
back
keep
for
doing
more.
them
They'll
over
tell you
and
that,
over
they will
again.
tell you that they're coming back for more.
That's right.
OG&E did that just this
Yeah.
week. They were the pilot program over in the city,
Right.
and I think it was at 16 cents a kilowatt. If you use your electricity during the peak times now, it's going to be 43 cents a
That's right.
kilowatt.
It
So
starts
they,
out
they get it all in, and then they raise your rates.
If you opt out and don't have a smart meter, are they still gonna charge us $3 or $4 a month that they say they're gonna charge everybody?
Probably.
But we don't have, you don't have the option of opting out right now. That you can't.
You don't, you can't.
They're gonna come and put it on your house regardless of whether you want it or not. There is nothing, you can't opt out and you don't opt in.
But in California, they can opt out, right?
But they also had legislature that.
In Petaluma and in Austin, Texas, they got an opt-out. And what happened was, there was a scientist, she was Dr. Laura Presley, and she was an activist. And she and her husband, he said, you jerk when you go to sleep at night. She said, no, you jerk when you go to sleep at night. Well, her foot would pulse to that meter.
Wow.
And so she called the TV station, had the TV station come out, had the electric representative come out, and showed them her foot moving to the pulse of that meter. And then she asked them to turn the meter off, and her foot was completely calm. Well, that changed everything in Austin. They had to have an opt-out then. So I'd rather us not have them at all. They do not need to do wireless technology. They could do it through fiber optics, and they could do it through underground wire. They don't need to make that meter wireless. And the state of Massachusetts, 2 electric companies in there, said we will not use those. They do not protect the grid. They do not do anything to reduce usage. We're not in the business of saving our clients money, and nobody's really going to save them money anyway, and they're going to sell their information. So they don't have to do this. Go ahead, I'm
So
sorry.
what if, for instance, this group were to show up at a city council meeting?
Well, I tell you what I would like this group to do. On Monday, the 21st of July, is testimony that will be presented in front of the Corporation Commission or in front of the judge for this rate hike. If every one of you could drive to Oklahoma City, and we can carpool, and that hearing is at 8:30, I would like to fill that courtroom. I'd like to fill it all the way out the door and into the street if we could. But that will have an impact. The last time we went, I think there was only maybe 6 or 7 of us, and that had an effect. So if we fill that room, they're really going to have to think about what they're doing.
Can you get some other groups throughout Oklahoma?
Yeah, we're gonna work and see if we can't get some other people to participate as well. But we've got to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I was on the advisory board in Illinois for my Republican representative / Democratic representative regarding this issue. And I'll tell you one of the ways in which it's being sold to the public. Now, I don't know how germane it is to Tulsa, but in the Illinois area, there were power outages and storms and everything. And they were selling it, especially to the older people. If you put in these smart meters, you won't have that happen. And that's how they sell it. And so to make a very clear distinction between the meter has nothing to do with the grid.
Nothing.
Because that's.
So they lied? I know, it's like, they'll tell you what you want to hear just to be able to make it happen.
They're already installed in Norman.
So, yes, in Norman and in Owasso. Who lives in Owasso? Yeah. Owasso has, do you guys have them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I've got to find out the exact meter we have, but we've had the digital meter for years. We
Okay.
had the first one in the county.
Well, Owasso was a test, and so was Norman. Norman was a test area for
Well,
it.
there is such a thing as just a digital meter that's not a smart meter. So you might want to make sure you ask and see, because you miss a signal and comes back to the meter. The smart meter is,
Ours was put in so that they could read it without coming on the property, so it does.
but a guy has to drive by and he's got a little box or something, scanner or something.
That's correct.
Yeah. The smart meter looks like that, but the collector is a tower, and the tower is centrally located and it's getting the signals off of all those meters within its territory. And it is also connected to the appliances, the data reading the signals within your house. So there's not every meter that has a digital readout is a smart meter. So you'll have to ask your utility company which one you actually have. I think this is great. And
Yes, ma'am?
this kind of information is what, there has to be a group effort, combined brains, people who have expertise on real estate law, which was that lady who left, I guess, and understanding who we actually have the contract with. I think the key is in the contract or the agreement. Yeah.
Can someone prepare talking points like the politicians do? I mean, really, it's hard to remember everything that's been discussed.
I think you could probably do that, Janine, because it's so intricate. It's that subject, just like Common Core when we first started with it, that kind of makes your eyes glaze over because there's so much of it. And when we went this week, it's like 4 things. Okay, they're not safe. They're a health hazard. They collect data, and then the rates and what and right and.
Control issue.
So it's like if I could just stay on those 4 things, I was okay. But Janine could go off into other stuff. But yes, we will make sure that we've got talking points. And as Janine said, on the 21st, if we can get as many people, and I'll put an email out, and we'll meet somewhere and we'll go over together. But if we can get as many people as we can in the courtroom to see that there are concerned citizens from all over the place. And I can tell you, when we drive from Tulsa to Oklahoma City, that's an impression. Because they know that we've driven for 90 miles to get there, to check on what's going on in our business, because that was one of the things, they're like, you guys come from Tulsa? You know, so that's very important.
I gotta believe there's good representation in Oklahoma City too.
You mean as far as people in opposition to the smart meters? Yeah, you just have to, let me tell you something. Tulsa's more active than Oklahoma City is. When it comes time for groups to show up in mass in Oklahoma City, most times we have more people from the Tulsa area than we do from Oklahoma City. So we're an unusual group. We stay very active, and that's what makes us effective. And we're willing to make the sacrifice of time and gas to be able to go over there to take care of the business that needs to be taken care of. Let me grab Carol in the back real quick, because she was so. Carol, right? Please don't make me get your name wrong. Go ahead.
I think about 6 years ago, an electric company, I live in Midtown Tulsa, Ranch Acres, Shirley is based around in there. And about 6 years ago, the electric company said, we're gonna put you all on underground electric. And I have what looks like a smart meter. They said it isn't, but I don't know whether it is or not. I have not felt well for that long. About every 6 houses, we have a big green tank box outside. It's between 6 houses. And I don't know.
You know what? Talk to Joe. He has a meter, and he may be able to come out and check your house and see what's going on.
I told the neighbor about it, and I gave the neighbor after I went to Joe in the last presentation.
Right.
And the neighbor across the street has a very seriously ill wife. It's a brain disease, only 300 in the world. But the neighbor took all the information, but he's best friends with the president of PSO. So he's never gotten back with me.
Right.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you all have thought about this a lot more than I have. And can you please list some things that you think they might be using this data money for?
Well, to sell you products, because they're going to know what kind of products you like using, because they're going to know that your refrigerator's an LG and your dishwasher's a GE and your television is Samsung. So they'll be able to use it for that. They'll be able to use it, they can tell you how much water you use when you take your shower, what your schedule is in the morning, when your alarm.
What's their purpose for all of that?
Control. A lot of it is ultimately it's gonna be all about control. And they're gonna be able to, just as Amanda said, where your coffee pot is only gonna work in the morning. Well, I don't know about you, but come about 5 o'clock, I kind of get ugly. And so I need a cup of coffee, and if my coffee pot only works, a certain time, because all of these different appliances emit a different level of electrical or a different tone. And so they can tell what you're using, when you're using it. Okay, they can take, let's just look at me for instance. They can say, okay, Rhonda, we see what's in your refrigerator. We recognize that you're overweight. We know what your medical records are. So now you need some medical thing taken care of. Then they might say, well, but you're not doing anything to take care of yourself. And so I might be denied something because of that. Ultimately, it's all about control. And it's going to be about controlling your electricity usage. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to do my laundry at 2 o'clock in the morning, But that's pretty much about what it's going to be, because you're not going to be able to afford to use your electricity during the day. They're already sending out text messages in the Edmond area, and I'll get to you in just a second. They're sending out text messages telling you when the critical peak times for electricity are going to be. And I watched this on Facebook, and I didn't know that this was even going on. And it says, yes, I got a notice from the electric company that critical time is going to be tomorrow between 3 and 6. So you have all these moms going, I'm going to pre-cool my house. I'm going to do all of this so that they can turn their electricity off between 3 and 6. That's control.
Well, that is control, and it's almost a robotics where you're talking about these health effects and people's bodies moving in harmony with these pulses, or avoiding them for whatever reason too.
So, yes, sir. Randy?
Is there any way we can find out what years the smart appliances started coming out? I mean, really hitting the market
The,
I suspect that possibly in my house, that it might be smart, might be my cost.
The regulations or the requirement for interoperability didn't originate till 2007 with the passage of that particular law. And so in order for mass-produced appliances, the manufacturers, to understand what was going to be required of them, took standards-making organizations to have meetings and agree to what those standards were. That's not a fast process. Plus, you had the manufacturing lines all set up to produce one way and switches. So it's not all done. So you have some that are more advanced. LG is one that's advanced. GE and Whirlpool. There's LG, GE, Whirlpool, and Samsung. I know for sure have bought in. Anything that's an Energy Star appliance is most likely compliant moving forward. There's still a lot of other appliances out there that are not. That's the other thing. On the issue of what do they use the information for? Control is no fun if you're not making money. So they're going to be making money because we are in a knowledge-based economy. Just go look that up. Knowledge-based economy. It is a real thing. It has a program and an agenda globally, a knowledge-based economy. And what that means, it is the collection, aggregation, analysis of data. It's analyzed, sold, and it's stored and sold and packaged. Then there's metadata, which is large amounts of data about data. And that's it. We're a mature world, and we've achieved success in a lot of different kinds of manufacturing. So we've gone to things now that it's just about the data about processes that already exist, right? So now it's all about data, which makes it internet dependent, computer dependent, telecommunications dependent, Wi-Fi signals, cloud computing, electronic this, electronic that, whatever. That is all about data, creation, aggregation, analysis, and sharing. That is the knowledge-based economy. And that's what it is. This is a whole part of this economic move and making money on it. So what it is they're going to be using it for marketing. It's not that you have an LG. It may be you don't have an LG. So LG would then be saying, okay, we know these many households don't have our product. We're going to start marketing our products to those potential future customers because we know something about them and what their needs are. It's the same thing where people didn't used to have a cell phone, right? Now you can hardly live without it because people didn't know that they needed it. Okay? So now you need it. So now there are products that you do not know that you need, but the data that can be generated from your house, you are a potential customer. Knowledge-based economy, gather the data, package it and sell it. Manufacturers will pay for it. Communications companies will pay for it. Computer companies will pay for it. Insurance companies will pay for it. Doctors will pay for it, etc. It's money. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Ronnie.
I read some industry information about the appliance manufacturers that 3 to 4 years ago, the first of them were cranking stuff off assembly lines with the chips and devices in them. And there's no big panic on their part really in a way because of the fact that these appliances and stuff are expendables. So even if you buy your blender today and it doesn't have a device in it, how many years do you use that blender before you're down buying another one? And the information sales thing, an example of that would be the fact that about a week ago I was online. I went straight to a couple of auto parts store sites and looked for an auto part. I did not purchase. I didn't Google the item at that time or anything. All I did was go straight to an auto parts site, looked at an item, and left there. Last night, I went on and logged on to Amazon.com, and when I logged on, Amazon immediately offered me the part that I had shopped for at AutoZone a week ago.
Same thing happened to me. I was looking up computer speakers.
I think they paid to get that information.
Your searches produce data and then they market a product. Watch Minority Report.
Is there any way to like deactivate these things? Or is anybody figuring out how to be smart enough to deactivate stuff?
searches, there are, this is kind of what Julian Assange was about, and the WikiLeaks and all that kind of stuff. This is about having free access to the internet and data without them collecting data on it for positive purposes and negative purposes. But it's that kind of stuff. When you sign on with Yahoo or AOL or whoever your provider is there for your email, or Hotmail or Google or whatever, you sign in a privacy agreement. Well, privacy agreement, nobody ever reads them because they're pages long, fine print, but in there it says the data is going to be collected for use for marketing purposes. Yes, and on the ads, you can opt out of the ads, but then the ads pop up. So if you go to Start Page or Firefox or something, you got a haircut.
No, I mean like deactivate them. No, Amanda, I actually.
I like the hair too.
I want- Is there anybody that's figuring out how to create like, some kind of a tool that you can physically use to deactivate? Like the smart meter
Hammer, it's
collection?
called a hammer.
Or anything else? Yeah, like that. But some kind of like, or to fool it or something?
You can shield some of the radiation between the meter in your house for health reasons. But to our knowledge, there's no way you can
Joe,
use
So
them
some
to
creative,
change
so some
the-
creative entrepreneurial person can make a lot of money by figuring out how to deactivate.
There's a whole market
crap.
for a lot of different things on this.
I think there's money in Faraday cages.
Yeah,
Appliances and things, if you disable that device, your appliance.
probably won't work. Let's do this. I've got a couple more things that I need to talk about, but let's take 2 more questions. Let me wrap up, and then we can go ahead and we can start, and then you guys can talk one-on-one. I think it would be important if you're interested in participating in forming some type of a committee on smart meters where we can start working and start becoming more effective and getting other groups involved. It takes committees to get this done, then I think that we'd be willing to do that, and you can meet with Janine, we can get your name and your contact information. Peggy, you had a question.
Well, I just wanted to, for anybody who's here that didn't get to see the movie, Take Your Power Back, you can watch it online for a nominal fee of
That's $2.99.
So that's well worth your time. Also, an aside note, hospitals are now mining your credit transactions and your bank accounts to determine whether you are a good risk for them. Because they're watching your spending patterns. They're already buying that information from your banks and your credit cards.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Peggy, for that happy piece of information. Joe Newhart.
Does Joe specifically get to say anything tonight?
We can let him talk in just a minute.
If I just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Will smart meters help prevent those learners car driving traffic?
Good question. Was there one more question back here? Robert?
Does the power grid control have anything to do with Agenda 21?
Yes.
Yes.
It's all Agenda 21. It's all about control.
Is about a new economy.
So, Joe, did you want to come up and say a few words real quick and maybe answer any questions that anybody might have regarding the health issues? Because we've had a number of people that have been affected, Joe being one of them, Janine another, has been affected health-wise. And so maybe he can tell you some things that you might want to look for or just answer some questions. So go ahead, Joe.
So I have 5 minutes.
You bet. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Where's the clock?
Oh, I'll be the clock.
Joe Esposito from Owasso, they're the one that PSO turned my power off for 66 days. That was a real adventure. Let me just read this document. It's only 2 pages. I told the judge yesterday or day before. Or was it Wednesday? Today is Thursday. Yesterday. He said, okay. We had a hearing with Oklahoma Natural Gas. We have an 80-year-old lady that they put her gas meter on in 2010, and she's had cancer on her face, and she's been every year since to get surgery, where she just left today.
Bill, can you talk into the mic?
I can. And I like this mic because it's corded. Okay. But Jerry, well, let me just read this real quick because 5 minutes is drifting away. I just wrote this. We spent a week with Margie preparing her for this hearing to come up with a document to counter what the OMG false accusations were. So let me just maybe help everybody here. It's wireless, the foundational problem of the utility smart meters. The foundational problem with the utility smart meters versus analog meters is the difference in the function of the two types of meters. Analog meters have been around for more than 50 years. These analog meters are mechanical operating meters, and there is no man-made, non-ionizing, non-thermal pulsed microwave radiation being emitted from these meters. Not one analog meter made any person sick. However, the smart meters are transmitting, which they didn't tell us, man-made non-ionizing pulsed microwave radiation, which according to the World Health Organization is a Class 2B carcinogen. The utilities have failed to inform the public concerning the use of this hazardous radiation. Jerry Flynn, a retired Canadian military captain, served 22 years of his 26-year military career as an electronic warfare expert. He has developed a 422 slide PowerPoint presentation in which he walks people through the birth, the development, present status of microwave radiation. In a recent letter to the editor, Mr. Flynn, that was Sedona, Arizona, Mr. Flynn made 7-point covering the truth about smart meters, which the 5th point being, and this is what you need to know that they're not telling you. Remember, Jerry Flynn, this was his expertise. Quote, non-industrial funded scientists say that there is no such thing as a safe level of radiation no matter how weak the signal. None of this is safe. It never has been. This technology being used by the wireless industry and the utilities is not safe. That is why it is classified as a Class 2B carcinogen. I also have a 1972 Navy military document, 106 pages, 2,300 scientific studies, showing 5 pages of health symptoms. This radiation is causing microwave sickness, which was recognized back in 1932 and first reported in Germany. Today, with all the exploding use of wireless, we are all experiencing the very same microwave sickness, except on a worldwide scale. The Oklahoma Corporation Commission can make a ruling on this man-made non-thermal pulsed microwave radiation because there is no law governing its use or concentration. It is not thermal. Therefore, this non-thermal radiation would not fall under the FCC guidelines. The FCC just sets thermal guidelines for devices. No guidelines for cumulative total amounts, no guidelines for continual 24/7, 365. The radiation just keeps increasing by the day. The FCC data sheet, wireless devices and health concerns, current exposure limits set in 1996, the FCC has required that all wireless communication devices sold in the United States meet its minimum guidelines. The next statement, while there is no federal developed national standard for safe levels of exposure to radio frequencies, I like to call it microwave radiation, we are not being protected from the sea of man-made, non-ionizing, non-thermal, pulsed microwave radiation that is doing more and more damage to humans and all biological life, i.e. bees, which I used to have 22 beehives by the day. Got 3 beehives where I live now, they're all dead. We must recognize that the utility smart meters are not safe, and it is crucial for the Oklahoma Corporation Commission rule against the utilities, wireless meters, and protect all Oklahomans from microwave sickness. Just to show you what I'm talking about, this is a baby monitor. And some of you may have never, this is a meter that reads microwave radiation. This is a baby monitor that emits microwave radiation like your smart meters, your water meter, your gas meter, and we've been through all that. But I'm going to turn this baby monitor on that the mom wears, right? She puts on her hip. I did a presentation, April, several, how much more lunch you got?
You got a couple more.
Two more minutes, okay. And this lady went home and cried all night. And she asked me to come read her house, which I did about on Wednesday. I think the meeting was on Saturday. She had this on her hip for 3 years. She had a baby monitor in the child's room, okay, which both of them were sick. And so when I went to do all that, it was an interesting story, a lot of stories. I said something to the effect, you know, when you get this radiation on children, they become normal again in some ADHD types. And so she started crying right then, and I didn't know what I had said. She said, well, my child's not ADHD. But she went to pick the child up, and after it was having discipline problems, and this was the third day, that when on Wednesday the teacher said, you know, your child has had no timeouts because he's just a different child. What have you done to him? She went home Saturday night and turned this off. Okay, this is what it sounds like. And so this reads all the radiation, but see, we can't feel it, touch it, or see it. At my house, yes, smart meters are a problem, and I started out on smart meters like Dietrich Linghart said, you know, they have a $20 German method where they take an axe or hammer and smash the meter, and then it takes care of it. On the third time, they'll come out and replace it for you. So maybe we can try that here. And I said that in front of Bob Anthony and these utilities when I was there. But it's not only, it's all the radiation. I have a hospital, St. John's, pulse in me 20 seconds at high doses of radiation. I have a cell tower, 0.6 of a mile, with 7 layers and antennas, up to 2,000 microwatts. And I know you don't understand the readings, but a pregnant woman sleeping in a bedroom over 5 microwatts, she's looking at a pretty much chance of an autistic child. Because you look at autism and you look at the increase in radiation. Sperm damage, 3.4 microwatts. And so what I learned was, when we took the smart meter off and put the mechanical analog back on again, the meter readings were all still the same. Because of the massive radiation coming through the walls in my house, so we had to nail aluminum screen wire to the south side of the house and the roof to block it. So I can come help you see how much radiation is coming through your walls. So I thank you for your time, thank you for coming, and thank you for these 3 rays of sunshine, these 3 girls. They're a blessing to me, thank you.
And then,
Thank you.
so, we're learning more every day. We're going to continue to learn. We're going to get active on it. This is the new issue. It's what's going to, you know, we're still fighting Common Core, but this is one that we've got to start putting our sights on as well. And I know that's probably not right, because then it's talking about hunting, and that means guns, but no guns are going to be needed. But so this is going to be what we need to do. And so we need to start talking to our neighbors. We need to get involved. What I did was the sign-up sheet that you guys signed in on. I just wrote smart meters on the top. If you're interested in getting more information and getting involved and helping us organize, we would appreciate any help that you can give, and it will be greatly appreciated. And if at all possible, on the 21st, which is a week from Monday, if you can join us in Oklahoma City at the Corporation Commission in the courtroom, that we would greatly appreciate it, because, well, it's at 8:30.
How long do you expect this to take? All day?
Well, it could take 3 days, but we won't be there for 3 days. We'll be there until, if you want to go home, you can go home. We're going to, we'll carpool, and I'll send that out. If you get my emails, then I'll send that out in the email, let you know. We'll probably all meet at Reese's, depending on how many people go. We'll throw a bunch of people into cars, and we'll take off and go to Oklahoma City. So I would expect it would be for the afternoon. You know, we probably won't get home till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
And it may be less, since they're having it on 3 days. The last time we went, I think it was just an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
So
it may be half a day, and then it may be half a day the next day.
I'd come prepared to be there for a while, and then surprised if we get to go home early. But numbers matter, and we can provide numbers, and we can be there. We don't have to provide testimony. Yes, sir.
Will the discussion of smart meters be on July 21?
Yes, sir. Yes, that's what the court hearing is about. So they will, that's exactly what's going to be heard. So, like I said, I'll send more information out on it. If you're interested in becoming a part of a committee, I've got some sign-up sheets out there. It says smart meters on the top. Just put your name and your contact information and we'll get with you. Janine, did you have anything? One more?
For those that can't go with us or feel like they don't want to call somebody because they're not sure exactly what to ask or say,
Hey,
we've got
get back over here.
we've got 10 questions here that I can pass out to you too. So you'll have a sheet in front of you when you call your legislator's office, they're out of session, or the AG's office or the Corporation Commission.
Those will be out there on the back. And so thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you very much. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.